Hi, I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, coach, speaker, author, and I'm delighted to be here with Ken Barnes. Ken, it's a real joy to see you, and we were just chatting, isn't it? I haven't seen you for years. And you've had such a rich story and career, and I wanted to interview you. I interview people of all backgrounds who have got interesting stories, and I don't even know where to begin, because at the moment, fitness instructor, but your career goes way back where you founded an organisation that many people might have heard of, 100 Black Men of London. When you're introducing yourself, where do you begin?
You know, when I introduce myself, I firstly introduce myself as a father, because I'm first and foremost a father of two lovely girls. And secondly, I introduce myself as a man who's passionate about helping people. And you speak about my career and the transition, but I believe it's just been, everything I've done has led me to the point where I am now. It's educated me and fed me and positioned me so that I can effectively do what I'm doing now in a better way.
So tell us a little bit about now, and then I'm sure we're going to go back to the past and some of the things that you've done in the past.
Okay, so let me just go back slightly. As you know, been a similar field to what you've done. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a motivator, and that's what I've done. I mean, that's my passion, that's what I believe my purpose in, that's where I get my most fulfillment out of. But there came a point around the age which I am at now when I was attending many funerals. There were a number of people just dying, and they were dying of lifestyle illnesses. An epiphany came to me one day, and I said, you know, Ken, you're inspiring these people to do better in their work and their life, but if they don't have the health to do better, then really, you know, you're kind of defeating the object. You're inspiring them, and then they don't have the energy or the health. That then transitioned into a friend of mine introduced me to raw food. And I reluctantly went on a raw food diet. It was at that moment, Rasheed, when I learned how powerful food is on your mind and your body. And during that time, my mother, who was nearly 80 at the time, was so unwell. And she decided to join me on the diet. We were supposed to do it for 4 weeks, we did it for 5 months. And the transformation in myself and my mother was absolutely amazing. And I really began to understand the power of food. And it was, I had a product which was in the market. It was a spiritual life planner, which was working, but not as effectively as I would like. I then had the epiphany, why didn't I then transfer this into the health market? I really want to help people with regarding their health. And that's how it basically started. I had this product and I decided to put it inside the health market. But then I said to myself, Ken, if you're going to enter in this market, you need some qualifications. So then I qualified as a health coach. So I became a certified health coach. But my background in personal development and motivation told me that, you know, people may know what to do, but they don't always do it. They don't always have the mindset. So I decided to study neuroscience. And I then...
You're not one to do things by halves.
No.
That's what I love. I'm just loving this about the dance of the story that you're telling, that you're not one to do things by halves. And that's incredible. There's so many things already. I mean, I can't help but interrupt you because I'm finding what you're saying so rich. I wondered, you know, I love the bit where you were saying then on this journey, and then when you began the raw food stuff, you went on that journey with your mother. Did the fact that motivator and all that kind of stuff, did that begin with your mother? Was she inspiring? Were the parents inspiring? Were they? What was the point when the Ken the motivator was born? Because people can go way back, and if they search you online, they'll find stuff you've done years and years and years back. I want to know where that motivator was born. Then we'll come back to the neuroscience.
I think it's been innately in me. I mean, I am a product of a single parent, and I grew up with my mum, who I found very inspiring and very supportive. And I think at an early age, I was given the book Think and Grow Rich.
That's always the one. That's the one.
I was given the book Think. I said, read this book, and I read a line in there, Rasheed, that I believe gave me the impetus, and it was this: what the mind of a man can conceive and believe, he can achieve.
Wow. And how old were you roughly at the time?
I would have been about 21 at that point.
Yes.
And from that statement, it just said to me that if I think it and I believe it, I can make it happen.
And what were you doing at the time? What was going on for you at that time? And then how did you run with that?
Well, at that time, to be honest with you, I was actually wholesaling clothes from the back of my car.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I was being a bit entrepreneurial.
So you're an entrepreneur, yeah.
I realised that a lot of people worked in garages. The internet wasn't around at that time, and they didn't have enough time to go to the shops. So I would go to the wholesalers, buy lots of clothes, and travel around the garages and sell them clothes.
So there's something, I mean, one of the things that for people who are observing and looking in, that it seems that entrepreneurial gene was there from very, very early on. And I think, as we know from our field, isn't it, it's very interesting when you're looking in at anybody who's done something really inspiring, because you've done the role modelling work, some of your stuff. It's interesting to look in and look at the different ingredients that make somebody. So one of those things is that entrepreneur. Were you always resourceful, and did that come from partly from the family background?
I've asked myself that question. I have asked myself that question. I think my mother was quite resourceful, and where this deep entrepreneurial spirit has come from, I can't say, but what I can say is that my journey has always been one within, not one without. And it's always been one to discover what Ken Barnes is capable of, what can come out of Ken Barnes. And as such, I've always had the belief that if I believe it, I can do it. But I've always had this adherence to standards and quality. So I've always pushed myself, possibly more than some people would. I've always believed that if I'm going to do something, why do it small?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that I really like. You know, it's funny when I was just saying for the purpose of people who are watching this, because we haven't seen each other for years, and when I saw something that you posted on linked to the work now on LinkedIn, I was kind of like, I must interview Ken, because I'm really interested about this latest change and transformation of the work and helping other people transform their fitness and so on. So there's just a number of these things that I'm really curious about. That the word that actually was jumping into my head before, there's something authentic. I'm very passionate about, we live in a world of so much noise, and I'm only interested to really talk to people who have something authentic about who they are and what they do. And it might sound slightly controversial in this particular industry. You know, lots of people say, do this, do that, do that, but I want to find out, well, who is that person, and do they live what it is that they're talking about? So I get that feeling that was there very early on. You've not done things by halves. And I was just thinking, actually, just before, that many of the bits of the work you've done around for example, which we'll come on to, hopefully we can touch on a little bit now, for example, the 100 Black Men of London, lots of that kind of work, an area of doing work long before lots of people are doing all sorts of mentoring.
Absolutely.
So how did you get from the selling their clothes at the back of the car to when you were really in this mentoring, developing people? What was the jump? Because we've only got about 10 minutes.
I suppose very, very quickly, I mean, as time went on, I met up with a group of my individuals, and I think it was way back in about 1990 or 1988, we set up a group called Renaissance, and that was about putting on some very well-heeled events for people who could appreciate that.
I like that well-heeled event. Well, I like that. Do you mean by that events that really would have a richness for the soul and for the roundedness of that whole person? That's what I'm hearing.
Well, in a sense, I just believe that as you inspire in life, the social environments you place yourself in normally change, and I think that for the group of people that I knew, those environments were restricted. Yes. You know, as we grew up in knowledge and social class and possibly finances, we didn't have the right social events to be able to mix and meet people. Yes,
and I should have turned off my phone. There's somebody trying to get hold of the coach, but we're going to carry on regardless. I'm curious to know who it is, so that we're catching this on the thingy, and I'm not going to answer them, but keep that thought.
So that was the kind of the experience when I started to then meet the general public.
Yes.
From that period, I met a good friend of mine called Carl George. and we became good friends. And one day he approached me and said he's been approached by an organisation in America to start something here. And he said, look, should we go over and take a look? I'm not sure about it. Cut long story short, we travelled over there. We went to New Orleans, we went to. And we was bowled over.
Yeah.
Long story short, we came back to England, said let's do it. We started it in Birmingham.
Yes.
It went really well. And then the point came when I had to take up the mantle in England.
Right. So you had seen something that was kind of inspired, that 100 black men, something that they were doing there, some motivational work. Was it that, or were they doing something kind of different?
Well, I mean, basically speaking, it was men trying to make a difference.
Right.
I was a parent.
Yeah.
I felt I couldn't really talk about the condition of this world without trying to make a difference for my daughter.
Right.
And it just led, and my normal trait, when I do something, I don't do it by halves. I went full in, and yes, Birmingham started, and London started with great trepidation, but through God's grace, 16 years later, the organisation is still here and has impacted the lives of thousands of people. Now, that was a charity. I was never paid to do that, but it was my greatest growth period. I grew through giving. And a lot of people don't understand that. But by giving, you also receive.
Hello.
Yes? And I grew immensely in my confidence and in the skill sets, because I learned lots of transferable skill sets. After the 100, I then decided to transition professionally into that career, which was the mentoring.
And tell me, you know, briefly why that? Because I'd imagine that something like that, really important work, particularly at that time. You look at a place like London, you look at some of the issues, the attainment issues, other issues, and so on, that can be in place. You know, what made you then feel as though you're going to move on from that at that particular time? Is it that you needed a new challenge? You're kind of happy where the organisation, where the charity was at?
Well, in essence, it was that as a president you have a term which was 2 years.
Right, okay,
I served 3 terms.
Right, so,
as a founder. I served 3 terms,
Right.
and it was about time to hand it over. So give nurture the leadership board for someone to take. So it was just about my time to step down. It was just a natural progression. There were no issues. It was just a natural progression.
And then you talked about the mentoring and so on, and that was probably at the time, a period of time that I met you at this time. You were doing large mentoring lunches and other kind of events. Tell us a little bit about what that was about.
After the 100, I still wanted to make an impact. So I engaged in, I wrote a book called The 7 Principles of Respectisms, which became an accredited level 2 program, was delivered in schools throughout London, England and in Europe.
Wow.
And I was training teachers and other people to deliver it. So I was doing it effectively in the school system, but I got frustrated with the school system. And I felt at times I was ticking boxes, so I wanted to create something outside of the school system. So this is where the luncheon came in, the Woodson Barrow Role Model Luncheon, whereby you came and young people sat with role models, and you was a fantastic role model. On one of those days, I have you on film. And that started, I think that started in, well, it must have been 1994. That started, and that went incredibly well. Was it? No, couldn't have been 1994.
No, that would have been later.
No, it would have been much later, because it was about 10 years, about 10, 12 years ago. So forgive my maths. There.
No, don't worry. It's good, because that's just made me feel younger. So it's all good.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the luncheon went incredibly well, and in fact, I held the last one was last year.
Right.
Actually, we stopped it for a few years, and then I came back and I held it for 2 years. And the only reason I didn't hold it this year was, unfortunately, I had a tragic event where my mother had passed away earlier on this year, which is another story, which through my travesty, I'm able to share the pain that other people go through and help them through, because I went down very low at that period, but I managed to lift myself up. But that's another story. But all that has added to where I am now, Rasheed. And
so tell us then a little bit more about that now, because again, and it was kind of where you brought us in, which was about that health and that well-being, and you were seeing a number of people go before their time, lifestyle choices, foods, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a major change, because you've done so many things, and presumably for some, you could almost be perceived as a risk, because Ken Barnes done this, he's achieved this, he's done the schools programs, he's done that, he's set up, organised a charity that's done all of these kind of author and so on, to set up in that health field which is drenched with people. Why on earth would you want to do that, apart from your Ken Barnes and you're passionate about those particular things? But did any of that stuff kind of go through your mind?
Well, no, I just did it. I thought it and I did it. Right. I mean, but basically speaking, everything that I've done in the past has come to bear because my name is a Lean Mind Body Coach. Lean is an acronym that stands for lifestyle, exercise, attitude and nutrition. Right. So all the motivation is still there.
I hear you.
Everything, the lifestyle is that. I done a talk for John Lewis recently. Went in, done a corporate training about stress and work-life balance. So everything I would do in the past, I'm still doing now, but the central foundation is health.
Yeah, and it's holistic, and this is, I mean, before we close, I want to touch on this thing about the neuroscience, because all of these things then are interconnected, isn't it? Our thoughts, our behaviour, and our connectedness. So tell us a little bit about why you became then fascinated about the neuroscience, and then I kind of maybe want to wrap up with, you know, what it is, having done all the things that you've done, what I guess on the highest level that the work is about now. Tell us a little bit about then why you were then also interested in the neuroscience. Not only did you go and get that fitness qualification, you then went to expand into neuroscience.
Because change is difficult for people. People may want change, but they don't want to change. So I wanted to study what is it about people, why they change and how they change. And Rasheed, I discovered the core of our behaviour are our habits, our daily habits. So I studied how habits are formed. I studied CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, but then I studied even more how habits are formed. Trigger, routine, reward. It's a three-part cycle. And how to help people create new habits. Because that's what it's about. Because often, even an entrepreneurial journey, people want, but they can't consistently do. And you know, the great thing about habits, you don't need motivation, you don't need inspiration, you don't even need willpower. When you understand how to work with someone's habits, you can get people to do things without inspiration, motivation, and willpower. And especially when it comes to health, this is what I'm now able to do. I'm able to guide people who have not been interested in health or exercise for years, guide them through a process over 60, 90 days to be able to change their habits, to change their lifestyle, and change their long-term future.
And I get the feeling, so the work, is it with individuals, groups, and then also the things like the talks with the organisations, such as you've talked to them, so it's a blend.
I work with individuals.
Yeah.
I took on a new client today, by the way, which is absolutely great. I work in groups, as I'm doing at the moment, and within the corporate sector, being a leader, being someone who's been an entrepreneur, being a leader, I know also the pressures that entrepreneurs go through and leadership. So I also work with individuals who are leaders, because I always say this: don't sacrifice your health in pursuit of your wealth.
Absolutely, and you know the thing is, and I think that, you know, when you're doing this kind of work, any of this kind of work, and I do lots of work with leaders and managers as well as obviously being coach, health and fit, it's essential. You've got to have a very high level of health, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, isn't it, in order to do that? And if you don't, there's all sorts of problems kind of at bay, and there's all sorts of imbalances that you'll see.
It's not just physically, but just a simple concept of brain fog. I mean, just of concentration. When you learn how to be able to reduce that, or a simple act of mindfulness and meditation, it allows you to focus. I mean, I can change someone's diet, and within 1 week they'll notice they'll have more focus. And that's without the energy. And you know, as an entrepreneur, you need focus. As a leader, you need focus, because you'll miss things. And just a final point, one of the things I've realised in talking to many people is far too often people carry their home life into their work life, the emotions and everything, simply because they don't know how to demarcate and separate the two. And I show people how to do that.
Powerful. If people are trying to find you, Ken, what's the best way for them to find you?
I have a website, and that website is called www.theleanmindbodycoach.com. I have a YouTube channel, which is Make Health Your Habit. In fact, if they type in Make Health Your Habit, .tv. It will go to YouTube.
So we'll put this will be on YouTube, and we'll link.
Or go to
it.
Facebook and then Google "Make Health Your Habit," because that's my mantra. I want to encourage as many people to make health a habit. So if they just Google "Make Health Your Habit" on Facebook, on YouTube, I will come up somehow. Or the Lean Mind Body Coach.
Ken, it's been such a pleasure. And you're staying here today for my networking
absolutely.
success event.
I'm really excited about your network. I've heard about it, and I'm really excited about being part of it today.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm just going to turn off the camera, so I'm going to leave you to smile, and thank you so much. I just want to say, actually, before we close, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Thank you for all the people who you've supported and inspired, and for being a leader in this particular field of people development. And I just say that because I'm from that school of giving people kind of positive feedback and praise where it's due. So thank you for all the work that you continue to do, and so often selflessly, which is refreshing. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you taking the time and the interest to be able to hear some of my story, and possibly we can return the favour soon. And
I'd be love to be. Well, I'll talk happily on the channel. So
absolutely. And let me just also add. I've watched your career, and I've seen your consistency and persistency. Well, I say PC, persistency and consistency. And I've seen your growth, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. I'm going to turn off the camera now, and the message is telling me that I better get ready for the workshop. Thanks, Ken. Cheers. Bye.
For more videos, tips and advice, why not you join the Make Health Your Habit family on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Remember, when you make health your habit, you can live longer, feel stronger and look younger.